Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Your favorite podcast, it's Critical Blast.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
And I'm Scott Wakefield, host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham, where we talk about comic books and all kinds of great storytelling, sometimes with incredible guests. And we want you to join us Wednesday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Silverline Wednesday Wham. I'm Dean Zachary, your host and guide through the escape from the everyday world and into the wonderful world of comic books, imagination, creation without calculation. You may know me from some of the comics I've done in the past, all the way from Malibu back in the early days of the 90s and the Ferret and so forth, all the way through more mainstream comics. But now the important thing is I'm working for Silverline Comics. And tonight we have a very, very special show because we have two of the creators of our current Kickstarter project. This project is the Silverline Double Feature, which features the child-friendly fun book Bea, #1, and also the good old action-adventure superhero book Champion and Miss Fury. And without further ado, before I begin, I would be remiss if I did not thank our producer, Carlos, for his technical expertise in bringing this wonderful presentation to you, and our wonderful sponsor, the Daytona Beach Comic Convention, held on September 18th and 19th later this year. Now, as we move forward, I'd like to introduce our guests briefly and then let them take over. We have the illustrious illustrator extraordinaire Peter Clinton of said The Champion Miss Fury, who did the pencils. And we also have the creative genius Roland Mann, writer of Bea and Champion and Miss Fury, with us tonight. And without further ado, I will delay no more. I will begin with allowing Pete to introduce himself first and tell us a little bit about your background, Pete.
Well, it's nice not having to go after Roland because Roland's career is forever and mine is relatively short. So I'm the penciler on the Silverline Team Up, Champion and Miss Fury. I'm one of the many graduates of the Cubit School that are drawing for and working for Silverline. I drew. What else do I draw? I drew Miss Meow for Merc Magazine, issue 1 anyway, or some of issue 1. I publish my own stuff on Instagram and Webtoons. I say I do. I haven't had a chance to update those in quite a while because I've been fairly busy with these books. That's about it, really.
Well, you're busy
man. I follow Roland because Roland's now going to start saying all the things he's done. And, it's hard to follow that, so thanks for that.
We are going to get back to you, Pete, and we're going to talk in more detail about your influences, your artistic inspiration for your work. But here we are with our fearless leader, Roland Mann. Take it away, Roland. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Dino. I don't know that I've ever been called creative genius before, so let me add that one to my
Absolutely.
list here. I do appreciate that. How can I shorten this so that I don't agitate Pete, right? I've been writing comics for a long time. Yeah. How's that? And I did hear Curtis mention something the other day that I thought I would bring up in light of this current Kickstarter. But I did write a Miss Fury miniseries for Malibu back in the early 90s. It was my introduction to Miss Fury, and the way that happened is the Malibu supplied me with a huge stack of photocopies of the newspaper strips from the 1940s. I read through all of those, compiled a pitch for Malibu, and pitched them a 4-issue miniseries, which my cat and mouse collaborator of the day, Mitch Bird, penciled, and so he and I did a 4-issue Miss Fury miniseries. Miss Fury was then later added to. She was going to be added as a regular cast member in the Protectors, which was written by R.A. Jones. She did show up in a couple of the stories, but never got around to. Didn't last long enough to kind of get her into as a permanent member. But Miss Fury is public domain. In case anybody's wondering, well, how are you doing that? Right? It's Miss Fury is public domain, and so as long as what we do is based off of the 1940 stuff and not based off of the so even though I wrote, so someone asked me this, even though I wrote the 1990s miniseries, that is not public domain, so I can't use that material for what we're doing here, right? So I can only use what's done from the 1940s. Now, that doesn't mean that a clever creator won't give wink, wink, nod, nods to things that they've done. But yeah, that's we have to reference that Miss Fury is a public domain character, and that's what we're using. So
Tell us a little bit about Champion.
Yep. So Champion was born in the early pages of Cat and Mouse. I want to say issue number 3. Where's John Medic when you need him? It's funny. John Medic has become the continuity editor here at Silverline, mostly because he remembers things that I'm like, how did you even know that? I'll ask him. I'll say, hey, John, I'm going to bring in like Champion's ex-wife, and he will literally within moments email me back. You can find her mentioned on page 3, panel 2, page issue, all of it, right? I'm like, do you have that written down somewhere? You just memorize all this, right?
He's just got it in his head. He's a walking comic encyclopedia.
He does. Yeah. And so so when I was getting ready to do things with Champion, I sent him a bunch of messages, and lo and behold, he responds to me, and one of his emails even had panels clipped from the books themselves. Like, how did you do that? You can't just scan them and send it to me, right? But yeah, so Champion shows up in the early pages of Cat and Mouse. Cat and Mouse, of course, are still sort of the street level. Batman-ish, Daredevil-ish kinds of superheroes. A lot of people say, well, they're not really superheroes because they don't have powers. I guess you can make that argument, but thank you, Batman, right? And so that is kind of where I go with the argument. It's like, okay, well, if we call Batman a superhero, then I'm going to call Cat and Mouse superheroes too. Yeah.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. What about, does Champion have superpower? Tell us about his powers and sort of his persona.
Sure. So Champion is a guy I view very much, and he was created back when he was initially created. He was created with this with this intent, very much as kind of a Captain America kind of character, Captain America mentality. Very much the Boy Scout, the do-gooder. He wants to help. He's a firefighter. And he puts himself in these positions because he genuinely wants to help people. He's got a good heart. Sometimes he's a little naive. We saw some of that come out in one of the one early story of that he did with Silver Storm. Sometimes he could be a little naive, but that's because he anticipates and he expects goodness rather than badness out of people. And so when he emerged, he didn't emerge initially as a person with power, and he didn't emerge to be a superhero. He was just a firefighter rescuing people. And because he happened to be situationally where he was, he tied a shirt around his face so that he could breathe, right? He became a masked hero of the day, and he became an inspiration to very many, including Demon early on in the stories. And it was only kind of after that he realized, hey, I could actually put on a mask and maybe do some good, and encourage people, and be a force for good and not a force for evil.
That's good. That's awesome. That's awesome. I want to remind everybody, and you can see that the Kickstarter page is up. We are in the final days of a Kickstarter, rapidly approaching our goal. I want to encourage everyone, go check it out. Be a backer, support it, silverlinecomics.com, silverlinecomics.com, silverlinecomics.com. We are talking about the Silverline double feature tonight. I want to say, too, I've had the privilege of being able to draw covers for this book as well as other books. And what was really fun about this particular book was I like the tone you have with the book, Roland. It has that rollicking action adventure feel. It reminds me of classic superhero comics, and I'm going to use that term as you do very broadly, even though they're masked vigilantes or costume vigilantes in a way, but in a more shall we say, more wholesome way than we would usually consider vigilantes to be. Less grim and gritty, and more old-fashioned Captain America. So set the stage for Champion entering this world where Miss Fury lives, and how that world is also shared by some other Silverline characters.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. You can't give too much away yet, Pete.
No.
So part of what I wanted to do is, if you look back, and let me be very quick to say that if you're one of these who's listening, you're saying, well, I didn't read Cat and Mouse back in the day, and I don't remember Champion showing up. It's okay. You do not have to. You do not have to come to this series with the foreknowledge of anything that's gone before. You're going to be able to pick up right here at issue 1 and be right along for the ride with the rest of us without really having missed anything. Now, obviously, if you've seen him early on, then you're going to be a little more in the know. But you don't have to. You don't have to be aware of what's gone before to understand the story. But ultimately, what happens is we come in the middle of Dan Taylor, who is the champion, and his life is a mess, right? He's his personal life is a mess. He's devoted. His devotion to helping other people has, as often does with classic heroes, has affected his personal life so much that it destroyed his marriage, and so his life is just a mess. And he's got a good pal who is his physician, who, Dean, you might recognize if you look closely. The physician goes by the nickname Woody. If that rings any Starkville bells, Ole Miss bells to you, Starkville, Oxford bells, physician friend.
It does a little bit, yes. Okay. It does indeed. Yes.
And so Woody is relocating to. He's relocating his urgent care service down to New Orleans. Because he thinks he can do more good there, right? As a physician, he wants to do good as well. And so he invites Dan Taylor to come with him. He said, look, why don't you just take a little break, come with me, and come to New Orleans. You can check out my new clinic. You can see where I'm going to be, and who knows, just get away and have some fun. And so ultimately, he decides that that's what he's going to do. And he goes with Dr. Woody down to New Orleans, only to find out that he cannot really escape his troubles. His troubles follow him to New Orleans in the personas of our villains for the story, Pistol and Nim, and of course his conflict with them brings him into contact with Miss Fury as well, and that's kind of how they're all thrown together.
Oh, that's so cool. It does feel organic, the way that unfolds, and it brings the heroes together. And as for those watching on screen, you can see the full color version.
Look at that cover, man.
The cover, yeah,
Ooh.
that I was fortunate enough to be asked to create there, and I had a blast with this. The challenge was and you know this, Pete. I'm going to let you talk about this here in a moment. When you're drawing a storyline set in New Orleans, you know, you go to get all the references, and it's this street scenes with lots of people and lots of detail, and you're thinking, how do I summarize this with some sort of iconic image? And that's typically what I do, because I've done several of them, and behind me is an early cover for Cat and Mouse set in New Orleans. So I try to find ways to give the New Orleans flavor without doing the same old thing. So what I decided to do with this particular cover was just throw in the gas lamp idea. And if you notice closely, it's wrapped with some beads, which invoke the Mardi Gras idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then to give it drama, because I like atmosphere and rain and thunder and lightning, we have the actual gas lamp being struck by lightning, and in the background, these ominous domino mask eyes are sort of glowing in the rain. So I wanted to find a way to invoke or imply New Orleans without the typical imagery. But Pete, I'll let you take it away and talk a little bit about how you invoke and imply the New Orleans atmosphere in the storytelling.
Well, let me tell you, when Roland writes a script, he just writes New Orleans or fire engines and ambulances, and it takes him all of 2 seconds to write this stuff down.
Ouch!
Oh yeah.
I've never been to New Orleans, and I don't know much about New Orleans. I rely heavily on the Google images, and all these images are packed full of crowds.
Yes.
And this architecture is like, oh my god, why can't it just be like a normal up and down building? No, well, you guys know New Orleans better than I do. And I'm like, Jesus. What's the famous? Was it Bourbon Street?
Bourbon Street.
Bourbon Street, indeed.
Well, I know that's cropped up in a number of Silverline.
Yeah.
Because it's New Orleans. You draw that,
That's
people
right.
know exactly where you
Right.
are. Tell you what, I drew that in one large panel. I was like, yeah, that's done. That's enough of that.
Well, I know.
All these hanging baskets.
Yeah.
I
Oh yeah.
like my reference, and I like to get accurate, because you guys know, if the background, your characters are the amazing ones, right? The fantastical ones. So you got to set them in a reality to make it seem plausible.
Certainly.
So that's where your backgrounds and the scene setting comes in. So I like to have my backgrounds looking real, not just a block with square windows. So yeah, that, and I actually had fun, and I thought, oh well, I can throw in some Vespers or mopeds, because that looks very hippie. And I had these. Yeah, no, it was actually cool, because the buildings is one thing, but then you're trying to create an atmosphere, and you're trying to create that. It looked like a party atmosphere, and New Orleans has the Mardi Gras, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that's a big party. So I'm trying to just incorporate that sort of energy into those daytime scenes.
Well, if I may, a trick of the trade here, and to those listening who have been tasked by their writers to create a crowd scene in a crowded street, a good rule of thumb is create the background setting with one panel, and then the rest of the page just do the characters.
Yeah. Don't draw
Right?
it. I once had
you'll be drawing for hours.
Yeah, I once had when I was at school, I took on a job, and I wasn't enjoying it, but I tried to do my best. You always try to do your best, whatever. And I finished it, and there was a close up, so I thought, well, I'm not going to do a background, then a close up. One, because the speech bubble is going to cover it, and two, it's just going to crowd the scene. So I'm just not going to. So I sent it off to the writer, who said, "Well, you're not going to background in this panel." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm not going to do a background in every single panel, because no, that's just ridiculous. And if you want me to do that, I'm going to tell you now, I'm not going to do that." And he said, "Well, no, if you don't do a background in every panel, it's just lazy." I said, "Okay, well, I'm not going to draw anymore of the book because we're not going to fall out every single page because I've not done a background in every single panel.
Good grief.
Right.
Good luck. Draw it yourself, but you don't need a background in every panel. Once
No,
you've set the
you don't.
scene, like you said, because some panels, like New Orleans, drawing that every panel in small panels, once it's condensed down, it's just going to be a black and grey mess.
Yeah.
So it's not necessary. You can have fun with your backgrounds in the big panels and the wide panels. That's what they're for. But when you get close up, don't worry about it.
You don't need it. Yeah.
Other than that, you don't. Another thing is, even in crowd scenes, if you've got your main characters in the foreground, the background characters can be mostly silhouette.
Yeah.
Just shapes.
Just shapes. And,
it's got to, it all goes, I think anyway, and I understand art. I don't do it. But it has to be in the service of the story.
Yeah.
And not every panel requires a background, Not
if you want your book out on time.
No, exactly. These, and this is the thing that I kind of harp on a lot is that, we can, and it's, I love artwork. I could stare at the stuff that you guys do for hours and hours and hours. I really could. But in the end, this is a comic book. And if we're, no, we're not on the kind of schedule that Marvel and DC are on, but if we were, we'd have to do these things, once every 4 weeks, once a month. Yeah. And it's hard to create, quote unquote, a piece of art in 22 pages every single month. So you gotta step back and realize, I'm making a comic book. I'm not making a piece of fine art that's going to hang in the Louvre.
Yeah, you've got to choose. You're right, Roland. You're exactly right. And you have to choose your battles and say, all right, a little extra time on the covers, a little extra time on the establishing shots. Yeah. But then once you're storytelling, boom. And I've just asked Carlos to bring up actual story pages, Pete. And Pete, I'd love for you to just talk about these pages we're looking at, the ones you sent earlier today, and talk a little bit about, the challenges, how you pick camera angles, whatever you want to say about the work, because I think it's fantastic and powerful, and you did what I love to do myself when I'm drawing these books, and that is you start with a big action piece, a very dynamic piece. So,
well, you can thank Roland for that. He just we went all guns blazing in the first 4 or 5 pages.
Yep.
Yeah. We're looking at what's page 4, isn't it? We're looking at right at the moment.
He's actually scrolling them, Pete. So they'll scroll through.
Page 1. That was easy. It's the opening shot, and we've got first introduction to Champion. So I knew I needed a big panel, a big shot of him doing something super. And as he's in a fire, well, of course he's going to be holding up a falling ceiling.
Sure.
That was the main thing. Other than that, we have to set the scene. So you have to set where it is. So panel 1, we've got an establishing shot. What city's he in? I can't remember what city. Oh,
Chicago.
Chicago. Sorry.
Yeah, starts in Chicago.
Yeah. So there's another one, just finding reference of Chicago, and just actually in the end, I don't think I needed the reference because it was a really far distance shot.
Yeah.
So what was important is in the foreground or in the midground there was a fire, and that was going to be highlighted in the night. And then you would zoom in closer to where your establishing shot is, and that's a burning building, so nice and easy. I get to do that tall panel, so you can show all the different floors on fire, so it's a big fire. And then you zoom into the inside, and that's, in those 3 panels you've established where you are and who the character is. And then it's just about, those last 2 panels are close up, fire reflected in his visor or helmet, whatever the gas mask.
Right.
Just to show that he is properly surrounded, no way out. And then the hero thing, just charging into the fire, because that's what heroes do, isn't it? That's what firemen do. They just charge into the fire.
Exactly right. So
And
what
then-
are we looking at here?
This is page 4, so we just skipped over 2 and 3. The 2 and 3 is the big double-page spread, but 4 is where he's encountered Pistol and him. He's come through into the next room to save the baby, and there are the 2 villains, Pistol and him, standing by the, I think they call it a bassinet or
Crib, yeah.
Yeah,
Crib.
numerous. But when I was drawing this, we were having debates over what was what. Got my friends and I was like, "Well, can I just draw this?" 'Cause I think you put in crib, and I was like, "No, that's too big. I need something smaller." Bassinet, I don't know what the difference is. It's all the same, isn't it? No one's going to pick that up. No one's going to write in and say, "Well, hang on a minute, baby wouldn't be in that."
No, they're not.
No, it
Yeah,
works
so then we got
well.
the-
I mean, it's easily, absorbed. The reader understands what's going on, the rescue idea. And
Yeah,
so
that's
on.
the important thing.
That's the important thing.
There are going to be people, once they're 30 issues in, they're going to start picking up on, I suppose, things like that. I be expected.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be. That's the one thing you can't worry too much about editing and critiques, because no matter what you do, they're always going to say, well, that weapon actually, it doesn't work that way, or this gun doesn't look right, or you didn't put that. So I just throw it out and say, look, it's a comic book. It's an interpretation of reality.
It's the 3 nerds from Simpsons, isn't it?
Yes,
Or,
yes, absolutely right.
Magic did it. Whenever done like that, magic.
Yeah, the reference.
The Lucy Lawless answer, it's magic.
It's magic, right? It's
Wizard
magic.
did it.
What I want to talk about in a moment too, and Carlos is going to bring up the image. There it is. The pencils for the cover. I know the fans love seeing this, and I do as well, because this is what I do. Is they love seeing the pencils. And when you approach a cover like this, you've got the really nice tilted horizon for dynamic effect.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about the reference you used for the cover.
Well, yeah, I would almost never do a straight up and down shot, because there's no energy to it. It's just a very blah. That's it.
Right.
So I would tilt most images. It's the Batman 1966 Adam West. The camera angle goes a bit crazy. Everyone, that's comic.
Also, isn't that one of the primary lessons of Jack the King Kirby?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yes.
Just tilt it, give it a bit of energy. So otherwise, your eye just throws. Now I played around with this cover for ages. It's the cover of issue 1, right? So it has to. It's important. So we played around. I had them jumping off a roof. I had them coming out, and in the end, I thought, well, what's the important thing is I've got to show who the characters are, right? It's issue 1, and just establish there's these 2 guys, or a guy and a girl. I put in New Orleans, or the city behind, and the fluorescent light that just says New Orleans or New Orleans Hotel. So you know who they are, you know where they're going to be. And then I had the 2 shadows at the bottom, so you got this ominous off panel, off page threat that they're both facing off against. And I think I gave Champion a bit of a beat up, bleeding lip, or I can't remember now. I have to have another look at it. It's like that old Doctor Doom, a Fantastic Four cover of Doctor Doom, where his armor's falling off, and I didn't go quite that far, but I always remember that thinking, "Whoa, what the hell's happened to Doctor Doom? That's Doctor Doom. Who the hell does that to Doctor Doom?"
Right.
I like it when you're looking at it and think, "Oh, someone's beaten that character up," and you want to find out who it is. Just open the book and have a look.
Yeah.
But most importantly, it's issue 1. I thought, don't do anything too fancy. Let's just show who the characters are. So the people who no doubt they're looking at it and say, all right, it's about these 2 people.
That's a brilliant introduction, because again, you've established place and character. We know what we're getting. This is your superhero cover.
Yeah, the covers I like are the ones that reflect the story inside the book. Just a pin-up, and I know that the theme almost now is just a pin-up of a character on the cover.
Right.
I look at the old school comics, and it reflects the story that's going. The other Avengers and X-Men and stuff, and Spider-Man. You've got an idea what's going on in the comic book because it's on the cover. It's like, whoa, that looks cool. I want to read that. It's not just Spider-Man stood there with his fist up, or
Sure.
Spider-Man stood there with his hands on his hips, because that doesn't tell me anything about what I'm about to read.
Yeah.
So I like,
Absolutely.
and I know it's difficult now because the demand is, we need the cover to go in the magazine to promote the book. You just draw a cover, and they've got no idea what the story is, so the guys just have to draw a cover, and it is difficult. But
That
that's
also
what we do the cover
explains
a lot.
why it was pretty easy to convince you to use the blurbs then.
Yeah.
I love those. I absolutely love those.
My comic shop is stacked full of Silver Age and Bronze Age and comic books. So
Nice.
I'm always picking up stuff, and they literally just have it on the wall. I'm like, 30 quid, 40 quid, Avengers, whatever it is, but the cover looks cool, and that's all that matters. So like, it looks cool, and it'll look good on the wall eventually, and
Yep.
that's what sells me on it. Yeah.
No, I think it works well. And for those who are listeners and watchers of the show, we did a stream a few shows back about covers and comparing the concept of an action cover versus a posed cover.
Yeah.
And honestly, 9 times out of 10, for introduction to new characters, you want to go with posed.
Yeah, that's what I figure on this. Just show them issue 2 to 4. I can go crazy with the covers, because what the book's about by then.
Oh yeah.
What I want to know is where did you get this? Where did you get this from? Because that is a
Where is that from?
Yeah. Where did you get it? Because that's a rejected kind of a version of the logo, right? It's like,
Dean has his sources.
Where did you get that, Dean?
I have my ways.
It's like, wait. It's like, okay, so I absolutely love the pencil art, but wait a minute, that's a rejected logo.
Yeah,
Well, see, there's a lot of behind the scenes benefits to watching this stream, Roland, and that's one of them. You get to see things that may never have seen print. You get to see some of the behind the scenes stuff. That's what we're all about. But
so didn't you care if I back up and say something that
absolutely
I grabbed on that Pete said? So Pete was talking about this other project that he was doing, and he said that he just wasn't having fun, and we talked enough about, I think, throughout the variety of streams here, that comics, it's very much a collaboration. For me, from a writer's perspective, without the artist, it doesn't exist. It's just words on the page. It's no better than this right here. That's
right. Right.
That's it. And so, I've always, years and years and years, I've always had this a special affinity for artists. And I've always felt, and I know that we're kind of living in an age right now, and of course it kind of, like a roller coaster, but right now we're kind of living in an age of the writer. I would say very much the 90s was the age of the artist. But I'd say we're certainly in kind of that age of the writer today.
Sure.
That said, I still feel like, from my perspective, the artists are the most important part of the team, because this is a visual medium, right? And so the fact that Pete said he wasn't having any fun, and this is one of the things that, if you've talked to me at all about coming in to do stuff for Silverline, this is something I always say, is that, I want to have fun, and if you're going to do a comic, I want you to have fun. And so I number one, I believe Pete's having fun because I see it in the artwork, right? But number two, one of the things that when we first started talking, I even asked him, I don't know if he remembers, just like, hey, what do you like to draw? What do you want to draw? This is one of the things I ask almost any artist who expresses interest in, in doing stuff at Silverline. It's like, what do you want to draw? Because that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of story that I want to find for you. If you want to draw dwarves and goblins, then I'll try to find that kind of story for you. And Pete was really quick to say, I want to draw superheroes, but no one will give me the chance.
I want to draw everything, but I want to draw superheroes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like everyone wants me to draw, and I remember this. He says everyone wants me to draw science fiction and stuff, and I'm like, well, I've got a story that's a superhero story.
Oh,
You said I didn't know who Champion was. I was like, yeah, Champion, he sounds cool. So I knew who Miss Fury was. I was like,
Right.
yeah, I would definitely draw Miss Fury.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I was like, yeah, okay, I'm in. That she's cool. She's hot. That's fine.
She was the hook.
Yeah.
She's well,
Yeah.
It's fun drawing, attractive leading ladies as well. Because you get a break from the big muscle bound guys and spandex beating each other up. You want to draw something with some beautiful aesthetic.
Listen, we want both,
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the thing, and that's that's kind of what I wanted to wrap up with, and excuse me, I'm still a little snotty.
It's emotional.
Yeah. He's choking up a little bit. It means a lot to him.
So I mean, it actually does mean a lot to me that that the artists I work with enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because it is a collaboration, and this is not just my story. I don't look at it that way. I never say this is my story. No. This is our story. The words came from me, but the pencils came from Pete. The inks came from Tommy, and the colors came from Roberta. Right. This is our story. And so it's important for me that the artists are enjoying it. It's one of the reasons also in my stories what I try to do, and we can debate whether I'm successful at that or not. But one of the things that I try to do is that if I'm writing a 22-page comic, I try to think, okay, Pete's going to be penciling 22 pages. 11 of those need to have some action in them.
Yeah, well,
right.
Sure.
And right, for us to have a good story, we've got to have some of the downtime stuff, right? We have to have some of those, but there should be some kind of mix in there, because if I know that if Pete's going to be drawing, if I send him a script and it's got 22 pages of talking heads, that's going to be fun for all of about 2 pages.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely right. It's always nice to have a writer that understands that, hey, about every 5 to 7 pages, we want something splashy, something big, some explosions and fisticuffs.
Yeah. Listen, if I want to write talking heads, I'll write a novel.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I like doing comic books, so I like having the action in there.
I agree. And
that's what people pick up superhero comics, isn't it? They pick up superhero. They expect there's going to be some fights. That's how mature adults in superhero worlds resolve their problems. They punch each other in the face.
Again,
that's talk about these things.
That's why we reiterate this is escapism, ladies and gentlemen. This is not the real world. But this is a great time to jump in and say we've gone up from 3,541 to 3,572. We appreciate you guys backing the Silverline double feature. Please go now to Kickstarter. SilverlineComics.com, 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 and back this project. Again, It is the Silverline Team Up #1 featuring Champion and Miss Fury, and also what we're about to talk about next, which is Bea #1. Bea. And for those of us who know about that, we'll explain why we say it that way, or perhaps the writer's best at explaining that. But I'm going to hand it over to Roland and talk a little bit about Bea. We're seeing some images here. Give us set the table for us, Roland. Tell us about Bea.
Sure. I'm trying to I got notes up here somewhere so I don't misspeak. But sure. you kind of caught me flat-footed there as not I'm looking for.
I'm going to set the stage a little bit. This is not. This may be in appearance a kid's book, but like all good kids stories, it's got a lot of depth to it, and it's got a lot of double meaning with regard to what it's addressing in the content. You can take it at face value and enjoy it as a Winnie the Pooh style story, but there's a lot more there underneath it. And I have to say, just being asked to be a part of it and do the cover, which we'll show a little bit later, this was a nice change of pace from the grim and gritty superhero stuff to actually get a chance to see if my style could adapt easily to this format. And I had a blast doing it. So go ahead.
Oh, and the cover looks fantastic too.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were talking about this a week or two ago, weren't we, about the styles, and I said this is definitely not a style I don't think I could adapt to. You've done that really well. I was like, I don't know how. I would just draw a bear. like a real bear.
Like a real bear. I know, right?
Such a real bear. I think
I
that'd
was
be an
trying
interesting
I
to
was
do.
trying
But
to channel
I think so
sort of,
too.
what if I worked, at Disney, back in the animation days, and how would I adapt it? And it was fun. It was I pushed myself to do it, and it was great. I love trying new things. But tell us about it as the writer, Roland.
Sure.
Tell us about Bear.
Yeah. So, I hesitate to call it a children's story or a kid's story. I know that the artwork has a tendency to, because of the style. Yeah, it does. It invokes that, and I get it. I totally do. But it's written, again, not aimed at kids, but with the idea of, and so let me kind of talk a little bit about the origin of the concept.
Sure.
Obviously, I'm a father. Got two kids. They're no longer young, but they had their share of toys and all that kind of stuff, and I always leave them out in the on the floor. Don't put them back in the toy box and all that kind of stuff. We watched a lot of animation in the day. We read a lot of kids' books at the time. And I can remember, thinking at one point in time, and I was probably watching Winnie the Pooh, and there's a line in Winnie the Pooh where he's talking, he's feeling emotional about Christopher Robin, and he's something like, hey, how old will I be when you turn, or when will you die, or something like that. He goes, not until I'm 100. And he goes, how old will I be then? And he's like 99, and I'm like, okay, well that's kind of interesting, and of course, as an adult, you get to thinking, well, I wonder what happens when Christopher Robin does die.
Yeah.
What happens to, clearly Pooh is alive, right? In the stories. And so that's kind of what gave birth to the idea for me. And so my pitch for Bear is when the kid goes missing from the playroom, most of the inhabitants think he's dead, but not Bear, who's a stuffed bear. He tells everyone the kid is coming back to get them and take them to the big house where he's working on a new room for them all. The problem is no one believes Bear, and chaos and lawlessness erupts as they enjoy their newfound quote-unquote freedom. This leaves Bear to try to put a stop to it and return lawfulness. I say lawlessness, but that's not right. Lawfulness to the playroom.
That's nice. I love that concept, and I immediately caught on. As we enter the story, you see familiar looking characters, but they definitely have their own personality. And
Right.
Tell us about each one as the pages scroll for the viewer. Tell us about Hoglet, and
Sure.
tell us about the others.
Well, obviously the two primaries are going to be Bea and Hoglet, which of course draw heavy inspiration from Pooh and Piglet.
Mm-hmm.
Hoglet is Bear's trusted friend. He's his confidant. They're in the Hollow. They hang out at a place called the Stump, which is the local Greasy Spoon. And that's run by a character they call Miss Mandy. She's a kangaroo, and her kid is Jack. Okay, so now what we're looking at is this looks like Bear and Hoglet at the very beginning of the story, as we're just discovering that the kid is dead. And so there's some celebration going on. Some people thinking, "Oh, the kid's dead. We are now free, right? Free from the bonds of his law that he enforced, and now we can do what we want to." And of course, Bea rejects this immediately. And that's a panel there that does try to bring it all back to reality. You got to kind of read the story to get it, but that actually is the stuffed bear there, with an ice cream drop on his head, and that is a part of the story as some police officers come into the room looking for the kid. But yeah, so essentially what happens is the kid disappears, chaos erupts in the Hollow, and is kind of foist upon Bea to try to bring some kind of semblance of peace back to the area, but no one wants to believe him. And so his task is a daunting one, because he's trying to tell everybody, "Hey, chill," because he's going to come back and get us, and we're just going to move to the big house. We're going to move out of the playroom and into the big house, and no one believes him. So,
well, tell us a little bit about there's a character named Polecat, I believe.
Polecat, yeah. So Polecat's going to be he's in charge of the local mafia. He's going to be. We'll actually see him change, and we see him in these first few pages, and then we're going to see him about middle way through the book as he begins to change, free from any laws that the kid has made. He begins to change and become this sort of mafia leader there in the Hollow. So yeah, he's is
he an antagonist or just someone that's lost their way and is
he's going to be a bit of both.
Okay.
He's going to be a bit of both. He certainly lost his way, but he's going to be one of these that doesn't want to, even his opinion is kind of this: even if it is true that the kid is coming back to get us, I don't want it. I want the freedom that I have now, that I'm not under the rule of the kid. I want that freedom. So he's going to do everything in his power to be diametrically opposed to the word that Bear is trying to get out.
So in essence, what we almost have is a philosophical polemic discussion about law and order versus total chaos, right? I mean, if we really want to put an academic decoration on it,
Yeah.
What the visuals that everyone's seeing now, these are the stages of the cover that I drew for Bea number 1. You'll see the pencils, the inks by the great Tommy Flormonte Jr., and then colors by the great colorist Haley Martin herself. And what was nice about this was, if you'll notice, Pete, I used the old slanted horizon there as well, and to give it some action. And we have the trio, as I like to call them, just walking through the woods, and it has that bouncy, fantastic atmosphere to it. But if you look down near the bottom of the image,
yes,
you'll notice footprints.
Yes,
I needed a way to bring in the reference to the kid, an absent yet powerful figure. And initially, I was trying to come up with, well, how am I going to do this? The first idea I had was almost a shadow against the background of the horizon. But then I felt that might be too ominous and perhaps even a little bit too threatening. And maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. That's, ambiguous at this point. But I thought that the footsteps would allow me also to show off the fact that they're sneakers and it's a kid. So I wondered what you thought when you saw that, Roland, whether you liked that idea.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Obviously, the first part of the image, because it's right there in the middle, is Bea right smack dab in the middle. I'm like, cool, I like this. Loved your interpretation of the character. It's certainly different than we see, Haley draw. Mm-hmm. And as I looked at it, I'm like, what's that? Oh, those are footprints. Oh, that is so cool. Yeah.
It's a nice tone. It's got the tone sort of matches the book. Like you say, it's not threatening or ominous in any way, but there's definitely something going on. There's footprints are enough. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Thanks. I thought I just wanted to say it without oversaying
it. Exactly. Yeah.
And what I love about Haley's colors is she again brings the atmosphere of the book out with coloring.
Yeah, she does a really good job. Yeah, really good job.
So I love this, but let me ask you the question, Dean, as to
yes, sir.
The thought process here. So when you look at the characters and you look at the footprints, the characters are going in the same direction the footprints are headed.
Exactly.
So what was the thought process behind, let me make the characters go in the same direction or in the opposite direction?
Well, what I was thinking respect was in the resolution of the story, I'm anticipating the correction of their philosophical leaning. Okay,
Cool.
so sort of leading us into this is going to end up, with a happy ending, so to speak. But for right now, our missing character, who's just left his footprints, is absent, and in their own way, whether they're living in conflict with him or his memory, or whether they're aligning themselves with it, they're still following, right? So even if it's a wrestling match, they're still following. So the idea was to imply they're being led by the kid.
Very cool. Yep, I like that.
Yeah, that was the thought process there. I mean, it took me a while. I mean, I went back and forth on the concept, because again, it's out of my wheelhouse visually, but then also, I just reading it helped tremendously. Getting to know the characters through the book, and you've got a great voice for these more. I don't want to call them childlike characters in a pejorative way, but I want to say it in more of a wholesome way. The characters relate to all ages, like Winnie the Pooh does,
Right.
and like all great children's stories do. I mean, one might argue that regardless of the Harry Potter controversy about magic and so on and so forth, the reason I think it appealed to all age groups was because it was well written, and when something's well written, it appeals to a wider range. And that's I think that's why this is going to appeal to everyone. So, folks, if you're looking at this and you're saying, it's a kid's book, whatever, I don't want to read Winnie the Pooh, I want superhero stuff. Look, don't give it a shot. Give it a shot. Go to the Kickstarter. Support this book, silverlinecomics.com, silverlinecomics.com. Go to the Kickstarter and support Bea. This is a tremendous opportunity to jump on a great story here at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about the format, Roland, in terms of how do you feel as far as issues and story arc, and how many issues, and how, when is it going to resolve, that sort of thing.
Sure. Well, before I quite answer that question,
yes,
I'm going to back up to remind those who are considering backing what you said about Bea. You said, I read the issue so that I could do the cover, which means the book is finished. It's finished. That's right. Both of these books are finished. And so, as we like to say, pledge with confidence that you will get them as promised. I've lost count. I can't remember. Are we 10 for 10 or 11 for 11 now?
I thought we were 11 for 11.
11 for 11. Okay.
That's what I've been saying anyway.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I've just, so we're 11 for 11 as far as fulfillment on time goes. So I have no reason whatsoever to think that this will not be 12 for 12. I believe that it will be, because both books are done. And that's key for us. Okay, so how long are they? Well, let me tell you an interesting story about Silverline Team Up. So I had written Silverline Team Up as a 3-issue miniseries, okay? And the idea is, 22 pages times 3 gives us 66 pages. That's a good number, kind of at your low end for a trade, right? You need 64 to be able to square bind for any publisher, or any printer to want to square bind your work. So 322s is 66. That's kind of right there on that low cusp. And so that's kind of like, hey, we can do that. Get our story in. Pete commits to 3 issues, not 4. And so I can't remember. I think you weren't quite. So where were you in this? In the process, because you weren't quite finished with number 1, right?
No, I was coming up close to. I think we were talking about we were close to finishing 1. And then Tommy had the wonderful idea that he wanted to squeeze something into the next issue. And you were like, well, I've sort of written it now, but if we do, I will have to extend it to 4 issues. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Just it's another issue. It's fine. No problem.
And that was exactly it. Because I told Tommy, because Tommy got the idea to
Tommy has these ideas. Someone's got to talk to him about that.
yeah, he does. Yeah, he had this idea to add this character that I will not tell you who this character is. He had this idea to add the character to the story, and of course, as Pete says, my response was, "Well, the story's already written, and this character is not in the story." And he says, "Well, you could rewrite it," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I asked Pete to draw 3 issues, and this would mean that we're going to have to lengthen it a little bit." And then he said, "Well, Pete don't want to do it." I said, "Okay, well," I said, "Here's the deal then. Let me ask Pete, and if he's okay with it, then we'll extend it to. I'll make the revision. I'll revise the issues 2, 3, and 4, and we'll extend it to 4 issues." And so I approached Pete, and he goes, "Yeah, that sounds like fun."
Yeah, cool. I really wanted to draw that character he pitched. I was like, yeah. That's fine. Let's get him in there.
Yeah. So it is a 4-issue miniseries. And the cool thing is Pete's already drawn about half of issue 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think
fantastic.
Yeah.
I got
So
bumped onto another book to finish up another book very quickly, and then we'll get back to issue 2.
yeah.
So,
And you're almost finished with that one too. So
bringing that up, let's talk a little bit about Pete since we have you here. What's your typical day like in terms of how long does it take you to draw a page?
Chaos.
Do you have a day job? Are you doing this full time? Talk to us a little bit about the actual practical work day and what you do and how you do it.
When I started, I was doing this full time because I just got back from America and everything was in lockdown, so there was no work to go to even if you had a job. So it was wonderful. I know people didn't like lockdown, but I was like, this is great. I just draw all day, every day. Mm-hmm. Then the world started to get back to normal and I had to get a job. No, I work in a school. I'm not a teacher, but I assist in the classroom, so I don't have to worry about planning lessons and the stuff that takes up 90% of a teacher's time. I literally go in at 3 o'clock. I finish and go home, and then I'll work drawing for the rest of the evening, stopping for dinner, and to socialise with family.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's my days. 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock after walking the dog, I'll start working, and I'll finish. Unfortunately, I'll finish around 9 or 10. So it's not the 16 hours I was used to.
Right.
But
so
it's getting done.
Do you find that each page takes you? Let's estimate for us, like how many hours.
I used to be able to get a page done in a day. Now, because of work, I'm probably getting 2 done in a week. To maybe I get at the weekends. If I have a full weekend to myself, I can probably get another 1 or 2 done. Just unfortunately, I have to go places and do things with my fiance weekends.
Mama likes shoes.
That sounds right. It does. No,
in a dream world, then I said to the school, I said, look, if I get if I could, I wouldn't be here. I'd be drawing time.
Absolutely. So, same here.
Don't offer me a permanent job. If you want to reduce my hours, you can reduce my hours. That'll be absolutely fine.
Oh yeah, preaching to the choir, my friend. I understand that feeling. We want to welcome a visitor into the room here who just showed up, Mr. Brent Larson. Brent, introduce yourself to everyone.
I don't think he's actually on the stream yet, is he?
Yeah.
I don't see him on the little picture up there.
He's on standby. Oh, no, he's not.
Oh, he's on standby. Wow. Yeah. Well, I just teased your appearance, but before we move on, then let's say that it's time for everyone to go to Kickstarter if you haven't already and back the project. Silverlinecomics.com, silverlinecomics.com, and silverlinecomics.com. It's the double feature. Bea #1, Silverline Team Up Champion, and Miss Fury #1. Let's meet this Kickstarter goal because these are great books, and as Roland made very clear, they're already done. We normally at this point in our stream, we transition to our pop culture segment, and what I like to do is You know, a lot of times it's genre subject matter that is peripheral to comics, that has been adapted to comics, or sometimes it's just for fun. But we assume that a lot of folks watching the stream share our love for things like Star Trek. And I see now we do have our guest as we move into our pop culture gossip segment. Brent Larson, the inimitable and enigmatic Brent Larson. Brent, introduce yourself, my friend.
I would, but my enigmatic self doesn't actually want to be known truly by anyone. So, well, I'm Brent Larson. I'm the writer, creator of the Silverline book Kalis, and the creator-writer on the upcoming Silverline book Cape Town. And someone has to stop me at that point. I could just say anything for now. So,
No, that's great.
Taco. I mow the lawn sometimes.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
Mine needs mowing.
You have some interesting background in your career that links you to the film world, and that's intriguing to a lot of people. Tell us a little bit about, you know, you've written screenplays and stuff like that. Is that correct?
That is correct. For the last 12, 13 years, I've worked with an independent film production unit, writing most of their screenplays until the last couple of years. Then some others have written, and I have supervised them, so that's been fun.
Oh.
And yeah, I've written a bunch of short films, some of which have been seen all over the world, and as far away as places like Tibet, even.
Wow.
And
Impressive.
yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
We have
yeah.
an internationally known writer, ladies and gentlemen. So
I'm an internationally seen writer. Nobody knows me. So, there's no such thing as a famous. There's barely such a person as a famous screenwriter. There's definitely no such thing as a famous short film writer. So
I see.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of screenwriting and such, I'd like to lead our pop culture segment tonight by bringing up Star Trek. Now, there are a lot of us who've seen the various incarnations of Star Trek. What I want to talk about tonight is the recent development and announcement by Paramount that on their newest subscription platform, Paramount Plus, starting in September of this year, they'll be launching a Star Trek series called Star Trek Strange New Worlds. If anyone's familiar with Star Trek Discovery, it had mixed reviews, but it had some wonderful introductions of some characters that are in the canon prior to the original series, namely Captain Christopher Pike, Lieutenant Spock in this case, and Number One. And what's nice about the latest news that's pretty much public, this isn't too much in the behind-the-scenes gossip category, but mostly just an excitement here that I have. I want to get you guys' take on how you feel about a new Star Trek series that takes place in the 8 years between the end of Star Trek Discovery and the beginning of the Kirk, Spock, McCoy era of the original series. And I'm going to start with Mr. Brent Larson, since he just joined us. Brent, how do you feel about Star Trek and this new incarnation and retelling in that sort of quiet period prior to the original series?
Well, okay, I will come at this as an aficionado, but not truly a fan.
Okay.
Because I have not seen every episode of the original series. I did see every episode of TNG, Deep Space Nine. I saw maybe 3/4 of the Voyager episodes. I saw barely the first season of Enterprise, and that's pretty much it. Okay. Now, I loved the movies with the original cast. I'm the only one I know who actually thought Star Trek: The Motion Picture was a great film. the total number of people on this planet who think that could probably populate a small village in Germany. I loved the movies with the TNG cast. Even Nemesis had its moments. And the reboot with Chris Pine, I thought they were decent. Great effects, not great stories. Well cast. And then that's pretty much it. I would love to see Star Trek Discovery, but I've got so many streaming platforms now that I pay money for and watch like maybe one show on that I feel like a loser for actually even doing that. So picking up another one sounds like just a recipe for more self-loathing. So
I understand.
But having said that, I've always been a proponent for telling good stories in a format that people can appreciate, but not coasting on that format, which is why I'm not a huge fan of prequels because it feels like you're telling stories that are adjacent to the true, stronger story, unless you have a really good reason to do so. And it sounds like, I mean, the guys behind Star Trek are, I don't know what they're behind the scenes, like their story runners. I don't know what they're like because I imagine they're pretty hands-on because if you screw up Star Trek, and we're talking about a franchise that has endured possibly longer than any other. I wouldn't even call Sherlock Holmes a franchise. I mean, this is all happening in one universe. Doctor Who is comparable. Maybe Doctor Who is bigger, actually. But anyway, so I'm sure those guys are really tight on making sure that they don't do anything for a cash grab. And I don't know if Star Trek ever was a cash grab anyway. I don't know if it ever made enough money to be considered a huge, bonanza of money generating. Star Wars, obviously, yes. Like, you remember when J.J. Abrams announced he was going to do a Star Trek movie?
Yeah.
And the internet was like, huh, that sounds great. That's really intriguing. And then J.J. Abrams announced he was doing a new Star Wars, and he broke the internet for like half a day. Yeah. Like Star Trek wishes they had that kind of attention, but maybe in the end run, maybe not, because they have a little more flexibility to actually do things like good stories and not having to please the fans. On the other hand, they do have to take them into consideration. So
they
all
really
of that,
do.
I don't think I said anything.
They do, and it's interesting that you brought up fan service and you brought up content to serve simply the rabid fan base. From what I'm reading, this particular incarnation of Star Trek is going to be less serialized, which has become sort of the trend in more recent genre storytelling on television. There used to be, in the traditional Star Trek, the original series, was very episodic. You had a beginning and a middle and an end of every single episode. And when you did get a part 1 and 2, like the Menagerie or the Cage, if you want to go to the original edit, it was a special event. Yeah. And the episodic template was the template for the show, which gave us arguably a lot more variety, a lot more chance to go with different genres within the context of Star Trek, which made it very strong because you'd have Kirk, Spock, and McCoy solving a murder mystery in one, entering a realm where there was elements of horror in another episode, having a playful time with a time travel episode, which they did too many of, in my opinion.
Lots of those.
And playing dress up, whether it was 30s gangsters or old-fashioned gunfights in the OK Corral. And so you had a lot of just variety and in subject matter and tone. And that, to me, gave the opportunity to bring in all different kinds of fans to the series. And I think it's a smart move on Alex Kurtzman's part to go in that direction, to make this more episodic, to make the Enterprise, the classic NCC 1701 Enterprise, with slight upgrades in terms of texture and color, along with the uniforms and the sets, to make it, viewable and relatable in the year 2021. But before I go on too long on this, I want to get everyone's take on it. Pete, give us your take from a Brit's perspective. First of all, do you hate Trek because it's
no? I love it. I've seen every single episode ever. I love it.
Awesome.
I love it.
Nice. Awesome. So talk to us about when you found out, whether it was today, just now, or whether you've known for a while that these guys were going to do Star Trek Strange New Worlds with Captain Pike on the original Enterprise. What's your take on this?
I've always liked Captain Pike, because in the William Shatner, the original series, you don't see Pike except for that episode in which the pilot episode, and when he's in his electronic wheelchair. So you don't, but he was always portrayed or was spoken about as being a really great captain, and I think Anson Mount did a really good job of portraying him in the Discovery series. So when they said, "Oh, they're going to do more with him," I was like, "Yeah, I really like his portrayal of Pike, and you know his future, you know what's going to happen to him, but you don't know anything about him otherwise." So this is like another 5-year mission, isn't it? Really, but with Pike at the helm. So yeah, I enjoy Discovery. Discovery to me isn't Star Trek, but it's more like a Star Wars Star Trek. It's a lot more action packed, lots of gun battles and stuff like that, and it's cool. And it's a series my girlfriend watches. She'll watch it. She won't watch The Next Generation, even though it's got Patrick Stewart, the greatest man alive. She did sit down and watch Picard, however. I think she's at a stage where the technology is. She's like, "Oh yeah, I can watch this." It's like I think I've broken her, basically. You've got to watch. She won't watch like the animations. Like she won't watch Below Decks. But I thought that was really funny.
That's interesting. So knowing what the era brings in terms of, you being sounds like just a really serious Trekkie.
I
use the word Trekkie still because I've been a fan that long. You got to understand, if you're as old as I am and Roland, we remember before there was Star Wars, there was just Star Trek. Yeah. And we grew up on that, and there was something magical about, even with the cheesy effects because of the limitation of the era, the writing elevated the storytelling to such a degree. And, Shatner has become a caricature and all that. But if you go back and watch that first season, everyone's taking it seriously and, to various degrees of success based on the scripts. But Shatner's playing a tough captain.
It's by series 3 where he's playing William Shatner. But series 1 and 2, he's playing Captain Kirk.
He's playing Captain Kirk, exactly. So taking that into account, are you excited to see, the Pike era and see maybe, would you like them to go in the direction of teasing races and planets that we're familiar with, like the Gorn or the Telosians or those types of things? Or would you rather see completely different or a blend of both? What would you like?
Yeah, as long as they don't start bringing in, I mean, they brought in Spock, and I know Spock was with Pike in the pilot, but I sort of thought, I don't want to see the same characters again and again and again, just portrayed by different actors. This isn't Doctor Who. Right. I would like them to do. It's like with Star Wars. Okay, the Skywalker stuff is what brings people to the cinema, but actually, there's a lot more you could do. And it's the same with Star Trek. You got Pike now. Okay, Spock. You got Spock in there because the old fans they need that. But just bring in some new characters and do stuff. You got all the races. You just bring in new characters of those races. So there's a whole universe of stuff you can do with it. So and don't just keep rehashing the same. That's why I think Discovery was quite good because it was completely original characters and new races, and it was doing its own thing. I think it worked. It's been fun to watch. But don't bring Kirk back. Just leave him. Just leave him now.
Not,
No one's going
not
to
a
do
Shatner fan.
Kirk and Shatner, so just leave it.
Just leave it, right?
Just
Well,
leave it.
Roland, what about you, my friend? Talk to us about your take on Star Trek and this new stuff as well.
Yeah, so this is the first I've heard of it.
Okay.
So it's news to me as of 15 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago. So I'm not the opposite of Peter. I enjoy Star Trek. I like Star Trek. However, I have not watched any of the Enterprise, even though I've always kind of wanted to, because remind me who the actor was, who the
Scott
captain
Bakula.
was? Scott Bakula. I like him a lot.
Yes.
I like him a lot.
Yeah.
And so it's always kind of been on my radar that, I should watch that because I like him. Not because of Star Trek so much as because it's
It's Quantum Leap, man.
Yeah. We watched. I watched all of the first series, obviously, as a kid, and then reruns in college and all that kind of stuff. So, so I always enjoyed those. I watched The Next Generation with my wife when they used to run them on Sunday nights at 10:30.
Oh, yeah.
I think we probably watched them all. Whether we did or not, I don't know. I never watched any of the Deep Space Nine. Never watched any of those, even though I worked at Malibu and we did the comic adaptations of them.
Nice.
Are you saying, Pete, that I should have, or it's a shame
Should
that I
have
didn't?
watched that.
Really? Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I have not heard very many positive things about that one.
Right, well, they're wrong. That's okay.
Yeah, some say it's the best written of all of them.
That's
brilliant.
Now,
Brilliant.
I mean, I don't get into these. I will confess, I don't get into Star Trek conversations very frequently.
What
But
do you do with your time?
what's that?
What do you do with your time?
Not talk about Star Trek. I talk about superheroes.
What are you talking about? I don't understand.
Nobody cares about superheroes.
Yeah, I hate to admit you're probably right. So let's see. I enjoyed the movies. I did enjoy those. Obviously, not all to the same level. Wrath of Khan is still a good one. I even enjoy the new cast, where they recast the old characters, Kirk and Spock. What's the guy's name? Quintaro.
Oh, Zachary Quinto.
That guy.
Yeah.
I think he did a really good Spock.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that quite a bit. Get me to watch something new. You kind of like Pete said, I don't want to see you do Kirk and Spock again. I want to see you give me somebody different. I'm okay if they're contemporaries. I'm okay if they hail Spock and Kirk on the intercoms and need their advice for something. I'm okay with that. But I don't really want to see Kirk and Spock and that crew again. Been there, seen them, done that, and I guess really kind of the same is true for the rest. Show me somebody different. I want to see new cultures, new planets. I don't mind seeing a little bit to tie into current continuity and stuff like that. Show me what is Worf? What is he?
He's a Klingon.
Klingon.
Klingon? Okay.
I would love to see a Worf series like Picard because I love Worf.
Yeah, I thought Worf was a great character. So I wouldn't mind seeing something about Klingons and how did they go from being enemies to him being the what was he? He was the security chief, wasn't he? Yeah, security chief. Things like that.
Yeah.
But the big thing is probably you said it's going to be behind their paywall, which means I probably won't see it.
Well, what excites me about it, I think Pete, you might be able to relate to this as well, is for the first time in many years, we're getting episodic Star Trek where you're going to have the opportunity for a unique story with each episode.
Yeah, I like that.
if you don't care for one, maybe the next one will be to your taste, your cup of tea. That gives us a lot of opportunities for new cultures, new planets, new adventures. And I like the fact that we're getting the tone and the visual cues from the original series. If you noticed in these scrolling pictures, I think it's actually up now, they've released a shot of the transporter room, and it is remarkably reminiscent of the original transporter room from the original series. And for those of us who really love the show, there was something magical about the transporter effect and the idea of transporting that way. Again, that's something we hadn't thought of. And then, rather than having to take a shuttle down to the planet every time, you just beamed over there. Well, then they did a great job making that a risky endeavor as well. And there's dangers of having your molecules scrambled and reassembled. And so in a lot of the stories, that became a plot engine and a story engine and a danger. And, of course, crotchety old Dr. McCoy never liked using the transporter at all.
But the original series, the writers used to be proper sci-fi writers, didn't they? Right. They used to get the guys in, and they used to write episodes, and it used to be they had a focus on that sort of
some science behind it.
Yeah,
there was a lot of science. Again, we were in the midst of the space race here in the U.S. We were also inundated with images from NASA and the rockets that were being built and plans to go to the moon and all this, and so that was part of the cultural zeitgeist of the day. And then these writers were incredible. You go back and look up who these people are. There were writers for The Twilight Zone. There was Robert Bloch, who wrote Psycho and a lot of other great stories. There people who, like you said, proper science fiction authors who brought that gravitas and that weight to this little science fiction adventure show. And in 55 minutes, because back then they didn't have as many commercials like now. You get 43 minutes of content. Back then you get 55 minutes of content. And you can immerse yourself into that world and possibly expand your awareness about space. And that's what I loved about it.
Well, look too how much that is actually part of the current cultural consciousness. Beam me up, Scotty.
Sure.
This is said by people who have no idea what they're referencing.
Right.
They just beam me up, Scotty. Oh, that's some science fiction thing. I mean, they can get an idea of what their meaning of it is, but they don't necessarily know the origin of it. So it's become this one little science fiction thing, and this television show has become such a huge part of the overall cultural consciousness now.
Yes.
Would those guys have guessed that to be the case? Probably not.
Well, in those days as well, science fiction was a way to discuss the societal challenges of the day, whether it was the war in Vietnam or cultural clashes, the civil rights issues, and so on and so forth. You took these very fiery, hot button issues and you put them in the context of a fictional episode on Star Trek, and you could make philosophical points and argue both sides and one side, and that was fantastic in science fiction those days. Because remember, we're in the era at that time of the Planet of the Apes and Logan's Run and 2001: A Space Odyssey and Silent Running and all these really social, what I call social commentary science fiction. Even the novel Dune was big at the time, and which now is we're going to do that in an upcoming stream where we talk about rumors about Dune. That looks to be a pretty impressive relaunch of the film series here.
Let's hope so. The novel is amazing.
Yeah, it's epic in every sense of the word. But that being said, the Star Trek universe gave creators and thinkers a place to address our world, our reality, in a hopeful setting of an enlightened future. And I think people need that now,
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be good.
I'll say what I will miss is that we won't have Captain Kirk ripping his shirt just before.
Oh, no, right? I'll also miss the fisticuffs that Kirk had to get into at least once an episode.
Kirk Kung Fu. Yes.
Yeah, right. And
TV Kung Fu.
yeah, and the ripped shirt and the whole bit. So even the machismo was there, and Kirk had a charm, especially in those first 2 seasons, and then of course the caricature set in. But we'll see what they do with Pike. Obviously, the times are different, so you're going to have a very much more, I would imagine, a more cerebral, thoughtful leading man. But let's hope there's still some shootouts and fights too, because that's part of the fun. If you were going to write an episode, Brent, the screenwriter, what would you like to see in a modern Star Trek episode? Just off the top of your head, what would you like to see? Would you like to see more of a tone of like a Star Wars? There's a big conflict with another race, and we have space battles and shootouts, or would you like to see what I like to call cosmic mystery episode, where you go to the Guardian of Forever and you find this alien time machine where you can walk through a gateway and visit different times on different planets? I mean, what kind of subject matter would you love to see in a Star? I mean, you've kind of tipped your hat with your affection for the much talked about motion picture. People have strong feelings about that. I actually liked it as well. Yeah. But admittedly, full disclosure here, I also like Temple of Doom, so everyone hates that. But anyway, go ahead, talk to us about what tone would you take if you were given the task of writing an episode of a Star Trek episode? Let's say.
Well, the kind of sci-fi that I seem to enjoy more these days are stories that are not standalone but part of an arc, and are they are tonally kind of dark, but I don't want to go full dark. I'm getting a little sick of that. So I would probably want to tell that kind of story. And sci-fi has always been really good at, exactly what you've already said, Dean, which is taking issues of the day and playing them on a TV screen in a way that can mask the labels enough to create discussion without feeling necessarily like you have to protect a point of view, which is a really strong, good thing about sci-fi. So I would love to do that. But I keep finding that the best shows that I enjoy of any genre have characters that are really grounded in some kind of emotional, something that's recognizable, something that they're going through that I can latch onto. And so I would love to, I know that doesn't really, it might take me a little longer to go more specific, but I would love to see a sci-fi show that had that kind of, emotional resonance, contemporary themes, kind of a bigger story than just a single episode. That's probably what I would.
No, that sounds good.
Like that.
Sounds intriguing. I hope they hear this and tap into it. Pete, what about you? What would you like to, if you were gonna suggest an idea? Would you go cosmic mystery, or would you go battle? Would you go spy thriller, monster hunt? What do you like?
I like the old ones where every week there was a different monster or just alien or immortal being. I love those episodes where they always had some guy trying to be God.
Yeah,
or a god. I don't know if that would work anymore, but I used to love those episodes. I do like the episodic stuff. I think everything now is sort of geared towards having that long season overriding story arc, isn't it? But I don't know, just give me some sci-fi adventure. Just give me just head out into the unknown and discover some weird aliens who are nefarious and up to no good and trying to take over or steal your body or something like that. Suck your life out of you.
Good point. Good point. One of my favorite episodes is actually not the first one shot, but the first one aired, which was called The Man Trap, which was about, you remember that one, Pete? About the shape-shifting creature.
That's right. Was it stealing the salt or something?
Yes, it survived on salt.
That's
and
right.
it made it. This was such a creepy episode. I don't know if you remember this one, Roland, but I'm sure Brent does as well. But so our crew encounters this long lost research outpost on a remote planet, and everyone's gone except for the elderly professor, who's obviously gone a little bit cuckoo. He's been living there a little bit too long, and his wife, who appears different to different members of the crew, and come to find out this creature fed and ate everybody else on the station and made a deal with this professor, this doctor, that it would remain as the form of his dead wife and bring her to life for him if he would only spare its life. So they've been living in this bizarre situation where this alien takes the form of his wife. And of course, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, also the added twist was that McCoy had a relationship with this professor's wife in the past. So when the creature appeared to him, it appeared to him as she was when she was much, much younger. Mm. And so you had drama there, you had a horror story, and it was a mix. It had an eerie tone to it. And I remember being introduced to Star Trek with this sort of almost an eerie monster mystery, all mixed in with a space adventure. So very cool. But anyway, talk to us a little bit about what you'd like to see, Roland, if you were going to write an episode.
I would probably, I like the idea of, new races and things like that, but rather than grand schemes, I'd make them personal. How does this new race that we're meeting affect this one crew member? What relationship does this crew member have going into this episode? And I know that sounds pretty vague, but I'll kind of give you an idea what I mean. As a huge lover of history, right? I like the stories of history that are about the people. Okay, so not just necessarily about the American Civil War, but how did it affect this farmer in Tennessee when the Union armies invaded? Right. Tell me his story. Tell me his trials and tribulations, kind of in the bigger picture, bigger scheme of things. Obviously, we have to kind of know, especially if it's a fictional thing, we kind of have to know what's going on in the greater picture. But I'm less interested in the broader politics than I am in the individual people. Tell me the story of the individual people. Same thing, something like a World War II. Any of you ever seen the Big Red One, the World War II? Yeah, great movie, because it's the story of this one guy, right? Who we see him in World War One, and we see the end of the war come about, and we see him kill a German after the armistice has been declared. So he carries this guilt around with him, and then World War II comes around, and he gets in almost the exact same situation, and he's able to then redeem himself through all of it. But it's told within the greater picture of World War II, but it's the story, and World War One, but mostly World War II. But it's the story of this one guy, right? This sergeant who has to go through and deal with it. Those are the kinds of stories that I'm interested in. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm interested in those because I think that as people, we can find something that we can identify with. And I'll never identify with politicians making sweeping decisions for countries and nations and planets. I'll never identify with somebody like that, because that's not me, right? But I can identify with someone who's got to, make the decision. Well, do I go to work today or do I stay home? Right. Or, how is this decision going to affect my family? So that's the kind of thing that I would want to see.
Well, putting that's an excellent point. Even with the backdrop of a grand scheme, dealing story-wise with the decisions and the conflicts of the character, and then of course, maintaining all three focuses: man against man, man against nature, man against himself.
Yeah.
All of those elements. I remember an episode where Scotty, the engineer, was accused of murder, and the whole show was literally exonerating Scotty. So again, you had an alien, you had nefarious goings on, but the story really was, in essence, about friends and what friends have to do to stand up for each other.
Right.
And we've all been in a situation, perhaps, where someone we care about has been accused of something or been bullied, and we have to stand up for them.
Yeah.
And you could relate to that, even in this fantastic setting of science fiction.
Absolutely.
And, that's what's so great about Star Trek and sci-fi stories in general. Even touching base here with Dune, which we'll get into in a later stream. But you have, again, epic conflict, but we see this epic conflict through the surrogate of that character that we identify with. Well, folks, we're getting down to the end of the stream, but I want to remind everyone we are promoting a Kickstarter for Silverline, and that Kickstarter is live right now. There are 3 days to go. 3 days to go. And this is a Silverline double feature featuring Bea and Silverline team up of Champion and Miss Fury. Please go support this Kickstarter. Roland, did you want to have some other things to say about Silverline? Talk to us about what's coming up in the future. Any teases, any things we need to start looking out for that are coming up?
Sure, absolutely. I will add, before moving on to that it looks like there are still some of the Pete commissions left, some of the black and white commissions. Looks like there's still four. How many total were there, Pete? Were there six total?
Six in total.
Yeah. So there's still four of those left. Still 4 of the Thomas Formonti commissions. Get your favorite characters done in his Kid Hero style. It looks like there are. Let's see here. It looks like there are still 6 Haley commissions. So someone needs to jump on that and get a commission from Haley. As well as some of the pages have gone. Some of the original art is gone now, and I'll have to try to get in and update that tonight. But there is still plenty of original art.
Turned up.
Say again?
Look who's just turned up.
Oh, did he? Oh, look at him! Yeah, a hard-working man right there. And I will say, we did add today. We added, thanks to our printer pals at Kablam, we have already added, I should say, a limited 1 to 10. Bear number 1 and 1 to 10 of Silverline Team Up number 1 limited foil covers.
That's so nice.
Yeah. Tommy won't let me call them space tape.
It's very shiny.
It reminds me of space tape I had as a kid in the 1970s. Tommy won't
that way.
Yeah, he won't let me call them space tape, but they look so good. You can go on there and you can see pictures of both of the covers. You can also see a quick video that Tommy shot. That'll give you an idea of what they're going to look like. They're very limited though. There's only 10 of those. Plus, each of the creators are going to get one. So we're not going to get a numbered one. So you will only get the numbered ones. But there's only 10 of each of those. So you're going to have to act now if you want.
I think generally today I was like, I really need these. They're going to look so good on a convention table. People will stop. Look at that, shiny. No, I can't.
Wait, did you just tell Pete he could fix his hair in them?
I can't do that.
Nice work, Tommy. Nice work, Tommy. For those of you wondering,
We're dropping him from the next book.
For those of you wondering who's speaking there, Tommy Formonte Jr., our hardest working inker in comics today, our Silverline spectacular, also printer. And Tommy, say hello to everybody. I don't know if you're on screen yet, but tell us a little bit about what you do for Silverline. You ink and you print and you do everything in between.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes.
Mike, they said that I'm the co-owner of Kablam Digital Printing. So the show just started, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, once you got here, everything went through the stratosphere, man. People.
All right.
I mean, man, just like getting all kind of heat. No, we've spent the evening pretty much talking about the double feature for Silverline, the Kickstarter, getting folks to go there and support it. SilverlineComics.com. We talked about Bea #1. We talked about how much fun it was for you and I to jam on that cover, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, because you and I did it's the Kickstarter edition for both sides, right?
Yes. Bea and also Champion and Miss Fury. We even brought up the images for not just the inks, but also the colors as well on both those pieces. And hopefully,
yeah, Haley did a great job on the Bea cover, and then Roberta did a fabulous job on the team up side too. So that's
it's
really pretty. Yeah,
and we actually picked up some backers earlier, man.
We did.
I haven't jumped over there. The past 4 or 5 hours has just been stupid for me. So I haven't even looked. Where are we at now? Let me go look.
We're at 3572.
Oh, that's great.
Yep.
Yeah, look, we're almost there. Yeah,
I can't,
almost there.
I can't do the math, but we're less than 500 away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Less than 450 away. Actually, less than 430 or 30.
I'll have to believe you on that one.
The point is, everybody needs to go back. Our Silverline double feature tonight.
Yep.
Absolutely.
We are approaching the goal, and we're going to make it. We always do. It's 3 days to go.
We're already talking about stretch goals, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tommy and I have started swapping some messages, and so...
You guys talk about the commission pieces that we have and all the artwork and all that good stuff. You talk about the super mega team up commission.
We did not talk about that one tonight.
Talk about that. Somebody's going to get that.
Tommy.
Let me.
What we're doing on that one is so Pete is going to whoever gets this thing. I don't know what the price is on it, but whoever gets this thing, Pete's going to actually draw 11 by 17 artboard size of whatever it is that we want. I think we were on a show yesterday where he said he hates Transformers. So whoever gets this thing, make him draw Transformers because that's what he wants to draw. And then what we're going to do is once he's finished drawing it, he's going to scan it in and send it to me because, he's way on the other side of the lake there. Or the what do we call it? The other side
pond.
of the
pond. I believe they call it.
I don't know, whatever.
Yeah,
something over there.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's going to scan it in, send it to me, and then throw it in the mail. So by the time it gets here, I will have finished. I'm going to print it out, blue line, print it out, and I'm going to ink it. So we're actually going to have the pencils and the original inks, and then Roberta's going to color it. And then we're going to print it out on some nice the actual colors out on some nice board. And then once we print it out, we're going to erase the colors, so that way we'll never print it again. So whoever's getting this thing is going to get basically they're going to get the pencils, the actual inks in essentially the colors. Yeah. And then just think how neat that would be. You put all 3 of those pieces up there, 11 by 17 pieces of art. Yeah. I'm looking like as if it's right there. And, just a big old monster. And then we're not going to buy you the frame. You'll have to get the frame. But
you have to get your own frame.
You got to get your own frame. But
we'll buy some blue tack and just stick it up there.
Yeah, there you go. Just some masking tape or something like that, probably. But just think how cool that'll be. And it's whatever you want. If you want to do the Champion Miss Fury people on the thing, that would be great. If you want to do Cat and Mouse, if you want to do Demon from Demon Tales, if you want to do Bear, well, he'll draw a bear. If you want to do Transformers, if you want him to do a really cool Spider-Man, because we know Mr. Pete loves Spider-Man, he'll draw some crazy something. And just whatever you guys want is what we're going to do. So it's just a unique team up pin-up commission thing.
Yes, these are spectacular opportunities, folks. So don't miss out on this. This is really, really special double feature. I've had a fantastic time tonight talking about this with you guys. I want to thank everybody.
I had a great time too. It was fabulous. The 15 minutes I was on here.
It's just been amazing. Pete, man.
So you're gonna hang out with Tommy for another hour?
I'm gonna stay. I'm staying. Y'all can sit. Now y'all leave and y'all can just sit here. I'll put the TV on. And I got my iPad out. I'll just ink, and then if I'll watch the little thing there. If somebody asks a question, I'll look up and go, no. And then I'll go, yes, maybe. And then that kind of thing. That's what we'll do.
Tommy is the hardest working inker in comics, definitely at Silverline, and he never sleeps. That's our joke. He never sleeps. So he will be up. I want to give special thanks also to our fearless leader, Roland, man, who, even though he's a little bit under the weather, he pushed through tonight, did a fantastic job addressing all of my questions and hopefully enlightened you guys on the projects and inspired you to back the projects. I want to thank Brent also, and Tommy, thank you for showing up. And again, before we go, I want to again thank our sponsor, Daytona Beach Comic Convention. And I also want to thank our producer, Carlos, for being on point with providing our visuals as we discuss them during the show. And we always end with our motto, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, I don't have my thing.
Big Boy and Silverline.
Good night, everybody.